Well, hello, my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the founder and lead investigator with Deep Woods Paranormal. Along with my wife, Amanda, we explore everything paranormal and unknown, be it Bigfoot, ghosts, UFOs, Dogman, or anything else paranormal. We investigate it. So today, as you see, we have the Dogman screen behind us, and we're going to be talking to Kenny Thibodeu. He is of the North American Dogman Project, and I'll show you his logo here, if it'll let me. There we go. So this is his logo. He researches all Dogman reports across the United States, and I'm sure around the world too. So if you're listening outside the U.S., feel free to contact him. I'll leave his information in the link down below, so you guys can email him if you so choose, and you can report your sightings to him. So anyways, we're going to be talking about Texas today, the Texas Dogman reports. So Kenny, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, how you doing today, man?
Good. How are you? So
Not too bad, not too bad.
what got you into researching Dogman?
So, long story short is when I was 11, one of my mom's friends was a librarian at the high school. And when I was supposed to be studying or doing school-oriented tasks, I would get my passbook signed and I would go down to the library. And technically, you weren't supposed to really be able to browse the internet. You're just able to use like school-oriented tablets and stuff like that. But she used to let me scan the internet, so I was actually able to stumble across Jody Cook and the North American Dogman Project, and I thought it was pretty cool. So I started trying to just gather as much information as possible since then. And in the past like 3 months, I've just finally sat down and taken all the information that I've had inside of my mind, and also encounter papers that I had just written down everywhere, and finally was able to put it into a digital book format. That way I'm able to constantly update it in regards of debunking or adding new incredible information.
That's awesome. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Texas because you've got, your book is what, almost 400 pages or something. And I've
Yeah,
had a chance to read through several of the encounters which you sent me, which I appreciate. And it seems like they're seen by ranchers, hunters. It seems like they're seen by lakes a lot. They're seen chasing deer across roads, and campers too. Campers have had some pretty scary encounters with them. So, um, let's take a look at the map here. You can see my map, but this is Kenny's reports on top of that. All the ones in red. Uh, a lot of the blue ones are also Bigfoot reports. If I was able to zoom out, you can see there's other pins everywhere else. I've got credible Bigfoot reports pinned across the United States. I'm trying to fill in the map because I've got a theory, but looking at the
so you're basically, you're doing what I'm doing with the dog, man. Yeah, that's good stuff.
yeah, looking at the pins, it's kind of strange because a lot of them don't match my theory. So it's funny, but yeah, we're looking at the Texas Triangle essentially here. You got San Antonio on one side. Oops, you got Dallas. I'm not going to point it up there, but up towards the top of Texas, you got Dallas, and then down over here you got Houston, and of course, for Big Man and other hauntings and stuff, you've got Louisiana too. There's just a lot of reports across. If you cut Texas in half,
Yeah,
a lot of the reports are on the east side of Texas, and we're not central Texas. We're kind of close to central Texas. We're kind of like right in the middle of the state, essentially. So, but we have what's called the Texas Triangle that we're looking at that I just kind of talked about. It's actually much bigger, but there's an area that we're doing research at, and I'm not going to get into that on this podcast, but it seems like there's Dogman in that too. You got Dogman, you got hauntings, you got UFOs, you got Bigfoot's reports at least, and stuff like that. So anyways, let's talk about the case where the young girl was kidnapped by the Dogman. I think that's pretty interesting because there's a lot of people that go missing here in Texas, and Texas has a huge cave system, and there's a lot of theories behind what's in those cave systems, including Bigfoots and Dogman. So, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about that case?
Yeah, so actually, when you make reference to the cave systems, like one of the more well-known areas, the LBL, the Tennessee, Kentucky area, is right over the Mammoth Cave system as well, and that's one of the huge Dogman hotspots. So, yeah, no, there are definitely a ton of people. So back to like what you were saying about your theory, I have a theory myself, kind of in regards of to the missing 411. I personally believe that a lot of those cases fall under and in locations of where there's a ton of dogman activity,
Hmm.
and in a lot of those cases, you've had people speak about like seeing something like the Dennis Martin case where that family was like, we saw a wolf or bear man carrying him away. So that would definitely make sense to what you're saying in the Texas area because I've read a ton of different cases, and in those cases, they're yeah these little kids they're just basically are being kidnapped. They'll disappear into the woods, and if they are found, they're found miles and miles and miles away from where they really should have been able to get themselves, and also they're usually found deceased as well. One girl was found, and she shouldn't even have been able to be in the area without getting frostbitten on her feet, but she somehow survived. And when she was found, she had scratches all over her face. So it's definitely a global and united phenomenon for sure. But in Texas, in the Triangle, they have had a ton of reports that go back almost a couple hundred years, and
Mhm.
there you have cases of people that are living on the outskirts of town that end up having encounters with the dogmen on their property. There's like a couple famous cases from the Medora, Texas area, and also with a case with the little girl you're referring to. When when they ended up finding her, she just pretty much like every other little kid just described what it is that they see, and it's just really interesting because little children, I mean, they can lie for sure, but when you're younger like that and you have a very select vocabulary, it's quite interesting how they are all describing something very similar that they're seeing.
Right.
Uh, you would expect, I don't know, prefabrication to be more something that, I don't know, adults or people that have something to gain from it, like a 2 or 3 year old that can barely tell you kind of what's going on. They're not gaining anything out of like lying about that.
Right.
So, you know what I mean. So one case, this guy's daughter goes missing. She comes back, literally tells daddy what happened. Bear man, wolf man took me, fed me berries, etc. Then she asked for some apple juice and went back to playing in her sandbox. Because I mean, we're talking about like children here that,
Hmm.
again, as I said, they don't really have the mental capacity to come up with these huge, extravagant tales. I mean, they might, I don't know if they maybe had a mess in their diaper, they might lie about that or something. But how does a 2 year old come up with a concept of a massive wolfman creature taking her or him? And that description literally fits what the Greeks were talking about in 500 BC. I mean, how does a 3 year old understand or have the ability to even know what that is?
Right. What do you think a dogman is? What is your? You've researched it a lot. Where do you think their origins came from?
So personally, from talking to a ton of different friends of mine that are involved with indigenous tribes like the Chickasaw, the Yoki, and a bunch of other different indigenous cultures throughout the country, they all have reported dogman encounters since pretty much the beginning of time, around with the Sasquatch, and so it's not something that just has manifested itself. It's something that's been going on and being reported for quite a long time. And they seem to think that they are creatures and guardians of the forest. So they when they're talking about like the Wendigo and the Skinwalkers,
Hmm.
they're not directly referring to the Dogman. So they're referring to a human that can take shape into
Right.
something. For example, like a Dogman, so more along the lines of like a werewolf, but a
Hmm.
Dogman doesn't go back and forth. Like I say, like a Sasquatch, they're not changing into like a human form. They're in the form of what they are
Yeah.
for their existence. So to fully answer your question, just I mean, there really is no prime-based evidence or any expert that can say, hey, it's definitively this, because no one's proven it. But I do believe there is a ton of potential evidence that points in the direction of it being a living, breathing animal. They make dens. They've been seen living in dens. They've been seen drinking water, chasing deer, eating deer. They leave footprints, scratch marks, hair samples. There's been unknown canine samples taken from numerous cases. There's been people that have shot them, said that they've watched them bleed, stumble around. Again, these are all just us trying to come up with a theory as to what's occurring. But as far as I know, unless I'm going to be funny here, unless we're a Ghostbuster, I don't think you can kill a paranormal entity or even wound it, like say with an average. I mean, not an average weapon, but just like a weapon that would be based out of this realm. And also, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think paranormal entities drink or eat water. I don't think they leave like footprints behind necessarily or live in dens and things. I think they're like more of a manifestation. Whereas, as I just said, all these sightings with the Dogman, I shouldn't say all of them, a very large majority of them, there's physical evidence left behind, and
Hmm.
people hearing howling, smelling them. So I don't know. Yeah, there's just a ton of things that point in the direction of it actually being something that has existed. And I mean, we live on the surface, and also we don't really venture too far out into the forests as indigenous peoples and tribes do. So we think we know everything, but the wilderness is a pretty vast area, and with cave systems and things like that, there are potentials for things to exist that we're not familiar with yet. And I mean, it just you and I can text now, man. Okay, so we can come up with AI and all this stuff, but not you. But anyone that doesn't take a second to think about it, I guess I'd ask them to explain this: how are all these cultures in the past, before communication was able to be so accessible, report seeing the same things? We're talking about 500 BC. Okay, so how are people necessarily on other sides of the world communicating with people in Greece at that point in time? It could have been done in local areas, but you'd have to sail across the world just to tell them your encounter. And how long is that going to take? Years. Um, so yeah, it's very intriguing to see just the characteristics and the descriptions from just different cultures, whether it's indigenous tribes or European indigenous peoples, Canadian. It doesn't matter. Like the similarities are very eerie for sure.
Yeah. I actually talked to two Air Force personnel. They were off on leave. They're up, I think, towards the Dallas area. They didn't tell me exactly where they were, but they did tell me they were up in the Dallas area and then went off into a forested area to hike for the day. Both of them were carrying 9 mils, and they heard what sounded like rustling in the bush, and then they heard growling, and they just thought it was maybe a mountain lion or a wolf or something. And then it came, running out of the brush at them, and they pulled, and I think they said they were shot like 9 rounds each into this thing. By the time it hit the ground, they said that there was two black helicopters flying over them, And so they started taking pictures and video and trying to get some hair samples and other things. And all of a sudden, these two guys, they were about 2 miles from their car. All of a sudden, these guys in black, dressed in, the men in black, if you will, um, come up and start threatening them. They told them they had to, delete all the photos, all the videos off their phones. They made them wipe their phones clean, essentially, and escorted them back to their car. And so, like 2 hours later, they were able to hike back up to the same area once those guys left. And I guess they left and came back, and then there was nothing, no bullet casings, no body, no blood, no nothing. So makes me wonder if the military is playing a game with this as well. But I think you're right. I mean, if you look at when did the internet come into be, where you could actually sit down at a
Shoot,
computer and start using it. I remember I got my
probably.
computer when I was
Well,
19 or something. So back 20 some odd years ago, back in the late,
yeah.
and cell phones, I didn't get my first cell phone until I was
So
19.
like 96 maybe, I feel like I think that like the government was using it previous to that, but I
Oh,
think the public
yeah.
was,
Well,
yeah.
the internet actually became part of World War II, and it's not like think of it now. It was just basically a system of phones that they basically created, and I think the Germans might have done it too, but the Americans started with it, that went through the trenches, and so they could call each other from each
Hmm.
miles away and actually have a phone conversation, and that was the internet. And now we search the what's called the World Wide Web, and that's basically we don't actually search the internet; we search the World Wide Web. Uh,
Yes,
I,
yes.
did I did a report on it when I was a kid, actually when I was in college, and so I had to do a report on it because I was just taking an internet class, and we had to present all this information about the in a report that was part of our, I think, our final report. But yeah, so it's interesting that all this, all these ancient civilizations, had reported things like this. I mean, if you look at the Egyptians, they
Yeah,
have
with the new bits, yeah.
hieroglyphs of, like what looks like a wolf man with a headdress on and stuff. So, almost makes
I
you
mean,
wonder.
yeah, Christopher Columbus talks about it. Alexander the Great talks about having battles with them. There's like a bunch of um, old and like elderly, like looked upon individuals like that have had interactions and encounters. And to touch on the military thing you were saying, during World War II and like the Manhattan Project, and also like during like the Cold War, pretty much during those whole entire time frames, we were testing and basically training animals to be able to help us out because the Germans were using German shepherds and things like that. And during the Cold War, we were super worried about the Russians coming to take technology. So I can't remember the exact military base, but in Washington State, in Clickitat County, Dr. Lauren Donaldson and Dr. Bear were hired to experiment on animals and things like that up there. And they both admitted to it 3 different times that they were experimenting on apex predators. And some of them escaped, and they said they caught the majority of them, but they didn't specify what it was they were experimenting on.
That's what's creepy about it here.
But fast forward to today. Now, people report all around that area of seeing the Clickitat ape cat. It's like basically it looks like a dog, kind of with a baboon type face, but it moves with the agility of like a cat, and it's jet black, and it's all around through the area. So, yeah, I mean, I have a theory that I think the government probably has gotten their hands on them before because dogmen are smart, but they're I don't know. I personally don't think the government has gotten their hands on Sasquatch because Sasquatch are well aware totally of what's occurring, and I think they know from miles and miles away when we're coming. But a dogman is still a predator, so it knows there's a trap, but it still smells the meat and is still
Right.
gonna. I don't know. The animal instinct kind of takes over.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think, yeah, I think it would be easier to catch a dogman much more than it would be a Sasquatch. And there's also numerous cases of hikers and things coming across large military groups in the middle of the forest that are like fully loaded to the T with ammunition and things. Whereas if that was some sort of test project, you probably wouldn't have live ammunition,
Hmm.
which is pretty interesting. And I think the case you were talking to me about with that girl you want to meet from Texas, you're talking about the May 15th, 1901 Marble Falls case with Remy Arland. And during that time frame, a lot of the people down there, it was also back to a Native American legend of these bear and wolf people that would take beautiful women and children from the area because supposedly they wanted to wed them. And that girl was considered one of the more beautiful people in the village. And yeah, no, she was heading home one day, and a large black wolf man came out and grabbed her and took her away. Her mom heard her screaming, grabbed her rifle, couldn't find her anywhere, and went out and got the rest of the men from the town to go for a search party. And they did end up finding her. I think it was like maybe a day or so later, and she had claimed that once the wolf beast fell asleep, she was able to escape. But previous to that, every time she would try to scream for help and stuff like that, I guess she claimed the thing would become angry with her. So,
Yeah, it said in your writing it said that it had hit her multiple times when she tried to do that. So
yep. Yeah, and that's just one of the numerous cases about that. There's another little girl that when they found her, they asked why she didn't scream for help. And this was in the Michigan area in like the 1800s. And she said that every time she tried to scream for help, Mr. Wolf got upset at her and like ended up biting her hat off her head and stuff like that. So I don't know. I also think that when they're taking these kids and feeding them and stuff like that, this is so dark, but I think they're like literally fattening them up. I don't think this dog man is taking this kid for any sort of good purpose. It's
yeah,
like I think it's some yeah, I don't know. I mean, look at what we do. Again, this is so dark, but look at what we do with like Thanksgiving and stuff. I mean, we put the berries in with like the I don't know to taste and spice up the meat and stuff. So,
right.
um, yeah, and I just think some of these kids are getting lucky and escaping. But the odds are, if you have an interaction with a dog man, you're probably not really going to live to tell the tale unless it wants you to. So when people ask why there aren't more encounters and things like that. I guess my response is there is a ton of encounters, but also the majority of people don't go out looking for this if they're out with their family just hiking. So, I mean, I don't know. Like if you're out with your wife and kids and all of a sudden a dog man runs across the trail, the odds of you just having your phone out and about, okay, it's probably slim. And also, were you just carrying around caster and material in your backpack to just make a casting now of this track? No, because you were never out there in the first place to even like do that. You were out there just enjoying an afternoon with your family.
True. Very true. Yeah, I mean, everybody I've ever talked to, and I've talked to a few people, about them, and they out here people, whether it's Bigfoot or Dogman or anything like that, any kind of cryptid creature, they just go, "You better be carrying," and they won't say much to you about it. They say, "Don't ever turn your back on them. If you do see one, you better be ready because they will kill you supposedly." So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There's that North Carolina case, man, where the guy stepped out after the thing hit his trailer, and when he was looking at one, he turned around for a second because he heard another noise, and as soon as he turned back around, it already closed the distance, like 10 yards or so and stuff. So yeah, no, I mean, any sort of apex predator is definitely going to try to take an advantage of a situation. So I mean, I don't know. Also, so a lot of people don't realize lone wolves and things like that are either males that have been forced out to go start their own pack or want to start their own pack, or they're pretty much like the assholes of the group that none of the other wolves want them around, which is why they've been kicked out. So I would have an assumption that it would be the same with any other sort of animal. So you're probably going to have your groups of the dogmen that realize that if they take people all the time, well, guess what? Guess who's going to come looking for them? So they probably like don't do that. Those are the ones that probably see you, look at you, howl, and run the other way. But then you you probably have your rogue ones, which would team up probably in the smaller packs, and are the ones that are probably doing that. Just like as I said, everyone's got different personalities and things like that. So just think how easy it would be to target just a person hiking on a trail by themselves. I think it was not. It was just recent that you were actually able to start bringing firearms into national parks to like potentially protect yourself.
Right.
Up to up to before then, you weren't even allowed to have that. So
Right.
yeah, it's. I mean, it's pretty much like yeah. I mean, it's a sitting duck, dude. So that's why, yeah, you want to be in groups and things like that. Because I mean, it's no different than like a lion that runs on a group of zebra. If all the zebra kind of team up, the lion's confused. It's looking all around. There's just too much like going on for its sensors to take in. It's just overload. So in a lot of the reports that I've read, when there's groups of individuals, they start screaming, throwing rocks, making noises. It's just sensory overload. It just kind of causes the dog man to not really be able to focus on what's occurring, and they usually tend to leave the situation. Or when people are like flashing their high beams and repetitively like banging on their horn and stuff. I mean, it's not, if it really wants you, it's still going to get you, but it just seems to, I don't know, cause distress, like just like with a normal dog or a cat with like loud noises and stuff like that, or bright lights. I mean, what animal really wants bright lights, especially if it's nocturnal, shine in its eyes?
Right. Exactly. Well, I've heard of, not a lot, but a few cases I've read through, and I've actually talked to another witness up in Wisconsin, and she was driving through an area where she knows, she said one mountain has Bigfoot, the other mountain has Dogman, and they don't like, they stay away from each other. But she was driving down this road,
Yes, one hundred
running
percent.
through the middle of these mountains, and she said this Dogman came running down the hill at her, and she was going about 40 to 50, she said, and this thing caught up to her and came up and grabbed her back bumper with its teeth and was, gnawing on the back of her bumper. And I think she finally it was able to speed up a little bit, and it wasn't able to keep up anymore. But 40 to 50 miles an hour, that's moving. And I've heard other
That's
reports
happened a
of
couple times. Yeah,
dogs.
yeah,
I'm sure you have way more than I do, because I don't really focus on Dogman that much. But and I've
yeah.
also
On Bray Road in Wisconsin, man, there's a ton of those cases. Dude, another woman in that area, the thing actually jumped onto the back of her trunk and was holding on, and as she sped up, she was able to kind of swerve and get it off. And she tried to tell her husband. He didn't believe her, and he
wow.
went back to the scene with her, and the creature was still there, and
Oh, wow.
he didn't want to get out anymore. But yeah, no, there's actually a case up here of a woman that was going like 40 or 50, and the thing was trying to open her door. There's a case in Manistee National Forest where there was a big rig driver, same thing, that it was trying to open his doors. I mean, pretty much any situation that I've been able to record where they've been capable of trying that or near a house or a car, like they're going to for sure.
Yeah. Well, I talked to that same witness, told me as a kid, her parents had a farm, and she walked out into the barn, and she said at the back of the barn she heard a commotion, and she was just able to see this thing get up and like take off out the back door. She said it was just this huge wolf, and it was on all fours, but she said it wasn't a wolf, it was just too big to be a wolf, but it was sleeping on the straw in their back of their barn. So yeah, crazy. But anyways, all right. Well, we are running out of time here. We have to let Kenny go. I'm sure he's got other things to do tonight, and he's still trying to write his book and stuff. So, anyways, Kenny, thank you for coming on with us, and we'll definitely have you back on again. Uh,
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate it. Anything I can do to help you out, and I got your number, and you have my number. So,
yeah,
yeah,
well,
man.
we're going to be
Make
working
sure you
on
keep in touch, dude.
definitely. We're going to be working on, exploring the unknown with Matt and Amanda on our YouTube and Rumble page. So, that'll be kind of separate from everything else we do. But we're going to be doing our own show. and I'm sure uh, Dogman is going to be part of that. Bigfoot's also going to be part of that. But love to get more of your feedback on things. I'm sure people will have comments and questions. If you want to leave a comment down below, please be polite and we'll share that with him. Also, Kenny's information will be down below so you can contact him as well and pick his brain. But Kenny, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. It's been very interesting talking to you, and we look forward to speaking to you again in the future.
Heck yeah, no, I appreciate your time, man. And like I said, definitely anything I can do to help you out. If you need any sort of artwork or anything for your new page, let me know when I
Yeah,
get
we
some
definitely need some artwork.
extra
I'll
time.
have to send you over some artwork here in the future.
Yeah,
But yeah,
definitely. I'll
so
put
maybe
it up for
cool
you.
dog
Sweet.
man, a better dog man than I have because I'm going the wrong way.
No, that's cool, man. I like that too, dude. But no, anytime
Yeah,
you're a good dude, man. So what I try to do is anyone that is got the good intentions and things like that, I try to make sure to let them know that I'll help them out and stuff like that. Because there's definitely a ton of people, unfortunately, in this field that are a little bit abrasive. So I usually, I mean, I never publicly talk smack about anyone. So, but I do try to be selective with who I interact with and things like that. And I don't know if someone doesn't have a positive opinion about me and vocalizes it, it's okay. But I'm a type of person I wouldn't even take the time to
right.
really acknowledge that.
Right.
Um, I would just say thank you for watching and just try to, like I said, find positive people to interact with and stuff like that. So,
Exactly. Well, like I always say, I don't expect anyone to believe in anything paranormal in nature, whether it's ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, Dogman, cryptids, whatever, lake monsters, haunted locations, demons, whatever, until they've had an encounter where they can say it could be anything else but. And so, you know what? I just ask people to keep an open mind and just because you haven't seen one doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So, and with Dogman, honestly, I hope nobody ever sees one. Those things are
right,
scary as
right.
hell.
No, that's a really good way to look at it because I mean, same thing. I try to always look at things subjectively and objectively, and I approach it as a journalist and try to approach it as putting together a scientific paper. And
And
if if someone was to back me into the corner and make me answer, do you believe in Dogman? Is it real? My answer would be I don't know because I personally have never seen a cryptid. I've never interacted with. I've never seen a UFO. Any of those. I've never seen a ghost. But I do know for hundreds of thousands of years, people have reported seeing these things. People are still reporting seeing these things. So obviously, there's some sort of canine type traits that people are seeing. I mean, not everyone can be lying. So I just think it's my best work to try to document all that and just try to decipher, what is real and what's not, and just
right,
present that and just try to get like a good scientific community to look at it, like Jeff Meldrum and the late John Benagel, like they're doing with like the Sasquatch and things. But
yeah,
until then, it's just you and I and people that I don't ever want to diss people like us, but we're not biologists, we're not scientists, we're just researchers. So at the end of the day, the scientific community doesn't look upon us as credible until they put their stamp of approval on it for credible.
right.
So I just, yeah, there's a ton of people like us that do good work, but until we get the scientific stamp of approval, we don't unfortunately exist, our voice really, except in our community.
Right. Well, also, there's another side of that with the Big Brother. I'm not gonna say anything else about that, but and there's
Yeah, yeah,
other stuff going on in the background that people don't know about. That even if you know it's true, you can prove it. You have DNA, you have a body, you have whatever. Big Brother will still make sure that it's never proven. So, or at least at this point in time, because they don't want that out
definitely,
there.
definitely. But
Nobody
I
wants to go
think
into the forest
I
again.
right. But I will say I think people like Jeff Meldrum and stuff kind of have
hmm
surpassed that a little bit because I mean they're extremely well respected individuals in their field, and they have other people that are like primate specialists and things like that. So and the government's admitted that UFOs and stuff are real. So I think Dogman and I mean, sorry, Sasquatch and UFO are pretty much already been proven to have a ton of merit. I would say the next kind of one in line, in my opinion, would be the Dogman. I mean, there's way more credible evidence for the Dogman than there is for Loch Ness Monster, than there is for like the Chupacabra and stuff like that. I mean, the Dogman is right up there with Sasquatch and UFOs. It's just kind of been pushed under the rug, not really mainstream. So
Right.
as I share more stuff with you, you'll see like the actual reports and how much they go back.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, with that, we'll let Kenny go. Like I said, he's a busy
Cool.
guy. So, but we'll have him back on. So, if you guys have questions or you want to ask a question, please list it down below in the comments, and we'll definitely ask Kenny the next time he comes on. I think we're gonna have him on multiple times because, I mean, he's got
Yes, please do.
thousands of
Please
cases, I'm
do.
sure, that he's researching and stuff like that. And maybe we'll get lucky enough to, well, as Amanda and I research Dogman and the different Texas Triangle here, we'll find credible evidence to show him as well and get his take
That'd
on.
be great.
All right,
Good. I mean,
guys.
I'm glad to have you on board with the team. So, I mean,
Yeah,
anything that can help is amazing.
yeah, exactly. We need as many, you know, real people as we can get. We're looking for
Yes.
psychologists and
Yes. Same way with me. That's why I reached out to you, my friend.
right, and we have somebody that will help us with UFO stuff and whatever else. So it's just gonna be nice to have credible people that are credible
Yes.
on and help us out. So, all right. Well, thank you again. We appreciate it, and we will catch you on the next one.
Sounds good, my friend.